There is a moment in a man's life when staying connected becomes more dangerous than leaving. It doesn't arrive with anger. It doesn't arrive with heartbreak. It arrives with clarity. And Machiavelli understood this moment better than most men ever will. Power, he observed, is not lost in dramatic betrayals. It is bled out slowly through proximity, through familiarity, through allowing too many people access to your inner life, your time, your emotions, your direction. Most men think power is taken from them. In truth, it is given away, conversation by conversation, compromise by compromise, explanation by explanation. Machiavelli warned that a ruler is rarely destroyed by enemies alone. He is undone by those closest to him, by confidants who grow entitled, allies who grow lazy, friends who mistake access for influence. When this happens, the wise do not negotiate, they withdraw. This is why the most decisive move is often the quietest one. Not confrontation, not justification, disappearance. When you walk away without regret, it confuses people because they expect emotion, they expect conflict, they expect a final argument where they can negotiate terms. But when there is no sadness, no anger, no attempt to be understood, something unnerving happens. They realize they no longer have leverage over you. Machiavelli would tell you that regret is a signal of unresolved dependency. The powerful do not regret what no longer serves their position. They assess, they conclude, and they move. Emotion is not eliminated, but it is subordinated to strategy. Most relationships do not collapse because of cruelty. They collapse because the balance of advantage shifts. At some point, you realize that remaining connected costs more than it yields. Your presence stabilizes others while destabilizing you. Your availability maintains a system that no longer benefits your growth. And when that realization is complete, grief does not follow, relief does. This is what most people misinterpret as coldness. In reality, it is detachment. The same detachment Machiavelli advised rulers to cultivate if they wished to survive. He did not argue that a leader should be heartless. He argued that a leader must never allow sentiment to override position. When sentiment becomes a liability, it must be abandoned. This applies not only to kings, but to men navigating modern life. Look closely at the people you once felt obligated to. How many depended on your consistency more than they respected your direction? How many felt entitled to your attention without contributing to your advancement? How many mistook your patience for weakness? Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. They respond to what they see, not what you intend. When you remain present despite being drained, you teach others that your time has no cost. When you continue explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, you signal that your boundaries are flexible, and flexible boundaries invite pressure. Eventually, the only way to restore authority is to remove access. This is why the withdrawal feels final, not because you are angry, but because the calculation is complete. There is nothing left to negotiate. The reason you don't feel sad is because sadness belongs to loss, and this was not a loss. It was a correction. Machiavelli would call this a strategic retreat, not a failure. Retreat preserves resources, it allows repositioning, it removes exposure, and most importantly, it breaks patterns that others rely on to predict and control you. Predictability is the enemy of power. When people know how you will respond, when they know you will always show up, always explain, always forgive, they no longer fear consequences. Fear, in Machiavelli's sense, is not terror, it is respect for limits. And limits only exist when they are enforced. Walking away without sadness is enforcement. It tells the world something without words. Access to me is conditional. My presence is not a public resource. This is why people react so strongly when you disengage, not because they loved you deeply, but because the structure they depended on has collapsed. You were a stabilizing force, a predictable variable, a known quantity.
And when you remove yourself, the system destabilizes. Machiavelli observed that men resent losing what they assumed was permanent. They grow hostile not because they were wronged, but because they were exposed. Your absence reveals how much they took for granted. The disciplined man does not rush to correct this perception. He allows it to stand. Silence is more authoritative than explanation. Distance communicates what words cannot. It forces others to interpret rather than negotiate. This is also why you must resist the urge to return prematurely. Returning out of guilt teaches others that your withdrawal was temporary, emotional, reversible, that it was a protest, not a conclusion. Power erodes quickly once it is tested and found hollow. Machiavelli warned against half measures. If you remove someone from your inner circle, do it cleanly. Ambiguity invites manipulation. Finality restores order. This does not mean cruelty, it means clarity. As time passes, you will notice that your internal state changes. Without constant relational maintenance, your attention sharpens, your decisions become less reactive, your tolerance for trivial conflict drops, you begin to think in longer horizons. This is the psychological effect of regaining sovereignty. You stop asking how to be understood and start asking where to direct your energy. You stop managing impressions and start building position. You stop negotiating belonging and start choosing alignment. Machiavelli believed that a man's greatest vulnerability is his need to be loved by those who benefit from his weakness. When that need dissolves, manipulation loses its grip. And this is where the paradox appears. The less you need people, the more deliberate you become about who enters your life. You no longer confuse intensity with loyalty or history with alignment. You observe how others behave when they are not centered. You notice who respects your pace and who resists it, who adapts and who resists. The powerful do not collect people, they select them. This selection process feels ruthless to those accustomed to unconditional access, but Machiavelli would argue that mercy without structure invites decay. A system without gates eventually collapses. So you build gates. Not walls. Walls isolate out of fear. Gates regulate out of wisdom. The gatekeeper is not lonely, he is intentional. And eventually something unexpected happens. The silence no longer feels empty, it feels strategic. You realize that most noise was never connection, only obligation. Most closeness was never intimacy, only proximity. You are not alone now, you are unburdened. This is why you don't feel sad. Sadness would mean you doubt the decision. You don't. You know exactly why you left. You know what it cost to stay, and you know what it will cost to return. Machiavelli would say this is the moment a man stops being governed and starts governing himself. If this narration resonated, it's because you are already moving in this direction. You are already withdrawing energy from places that cannot sustain your future. You are already choosing position over performance. Support the channel by liking the video, sharing it with someone who is still negotiating their worth, and subscribing for more strategic, psychologically grounded content. And remember this, the most powerful move is not confrontation. It is absence, executed without regret. That is the move Machiavelli would make.